Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the In All Things podcast, or maybe welcome for the first time. We're excited that you're here. But today, I'm joined by Kristi Johnson and Josiah Webster.
What up?
And we're excited that you guys are here on the pod today with some live mics in front of you. So
never
you
knows
hold a lot of power. Yeah,
Josiah and I.
That's true.
Could be anything.
But this week is a big week for us here at Sycamore Creek, but all churches, because we are at this point 6 days. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
6 days away from Easter as we're recording this. So we thought that it would be in the middle of our crazy week leading up to this big weekend that we're about to have. We thought it would be good to just take a little bit of time and sit down and talk about what is it like from the staff point of view to, plan this big weekend and, involve all the different elements that we want to make sure we hit on an Easter weekend, and also maybe how long we've been planning it and when do those conversations kind of start, and just what does it look like through the years, and this year maybe even
Specifically?
Yeah, I get there eventually, but what does it look like from the staff perspective? Because this is, some people will make jokes, especially on Easter Sunday and whatnot, of, oh, this is your guys' Super Bowl, and this is because it is one of those big Sundays. So I just thought it'd be cool especially for you two. You guys are very involved in a lot of the behind the scenes of what it takes to pull this weekend off, Good Friday and Easter Sunday, and all the logistics and volunteers and all the things. For me, the Christmas and Easter are really interesting for me because student ministry is off on both of those holidays. So it's like, it's an interesting time for me because I just get to assist whatever gaps and holes that you guys need, but it's less of a burden on me than it is on maybe some other staff members. So I just thought it would be cool for people to kind of hear what it's like for you. So start with Kristi. What's this year like? What do you feel like your hands are kind of full with right now as we get ready for Easter? And is it pretty much the same every year? Does it change? Just kind of let the people know what it's like for you.
Yeah, so I've been here a lot of Easters.
Yeah.
I've worked here almost 25 years. I think I've only missed one during transplant with Brock. I think I missed one Easter, but it's always, we try to make it special for people while keeping it still the vibe of like who we are. Mm-hmm. But we want it to be special. We know we're going to have a lot of guests, and so most of the stuff that I do is behind the scenes, and you don't even think about it when you come to church, but I have to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is volunteers. It's different to where you don't have the same people like, oh, I always come to first service and I can volunteer. People have family in town and friends in town, so they're switching up their routine, and it takes a lot of volunteers for guest services, so that's always a difficult thing to get filled up. I'm like begging them all the time to do it, and a lot of times they're just not sure what their plans are, or they have families they don't want to commit to serving, so that's difficult, but I think we got it made. Missing a few at 11, so shout out anyone that hears this in guest services that wants to volunteer at 11 o'clock. Also just making sure the facility's clean, having Good Friday service. We tried to get it clean before that, but then our Good Friday crowd is big. And so turning that around, like the main thing, so that then we do have all the guests on Easter, that it looks nice and clean, and it's a welcoming environment. Also, we try to do something fun every year, and so I'm not going to tell you what it is this year, but we have something fun. And so with just prepping for that and setting up for that and picking
Silent
up stuff.
disco? Or no?
Oh, I want silent. That would be so fun. Silent disco on Easter. But also like going to pick things up on Saturday and those kind of things behind the scenes, and just the things that you don't think about on like Easter and Good Friday of trying to make sure everyone has a seat.
Right.
It sounds so dumb, but it's so packed.
It's true.
And if you leave like a seat here and a seat there, and a family of five comes in a little bit late, it's so hard to get them to be able to sit together. And so I don't know if you're like new to church or you've been around, but some people like their seats and they don't want to move, even if it's on a holiday when we have guests. That is probably one of my most frustrating things is when people people are adamant about not moving
Yeah.
in their seats.
You've had
like,
people tell you like, no, I'm not moving.
I have had people. I've had someone tell a first-time person like, "You're in my seat," and so for me, I just can't understand
That's so bonkers.
that heart.
Yeah,
like
that's
I
crazy.
would,
Yeah.
I would stay in the whole service if it meant letting someone else
100%,
have
yeah.
a seat. And you want to think everyone else is like that,
Mm.
but they're not. So that's always difficult, which also makes it difficult because the volunteers don't want to usher because they've faced
Gotta
that before.
tell people, yeah.
And you have to kind of say, hey, do you mind moving in? And people just don't want to move. So that's kind of a behind the scenes thing, making sure we have the communion stuff ready, however we choose to do that. Just the little things that happen. We still have coffee on Easter. So a lot of my stuff's just behind the scenes that I'm doing. Picture spot, making sure we have a cool place to take pictures, and you have to worry about the sun coming in and the flow because we are busy and our services are kind of close together.
But like all that stuff matters so much more than I think people give it credit for, because we do anticipate so many new people showing up for the first time, and like all of that is just first impressions of what people are going to see. Maybe for the first time ever in a church, certainly for a lot of them the first time at Sycamore.
Yeah.
And so we want to obviously put our best foot forward. And so it's tough when, you can't find the volunteers. And I get it. Everybody's got family stuff.
But I also tell my volunteers, I'm like, the front door volunteers especially, before anyone steps in and looks at our building, smells our building, because it always smells good, sees you sing, sees Mitch or Steve or whoever's preaching, before any of that, the first impression is that face outside.
100%.
And if it's a bad impression, I don't think it matters what you guys do. It's going to turn them away. So I always try to stress to like the guest service volunteers, like, you're so important. I know you feel like you're easily replaced, but you are literally the first impression of our church.
No, it's more important than people, I think, know or give it credit for. Even people who do it kind of understand. Especially, I mean, being in ministry, if we ever have a week off and we're going somewhere else to church or on vacation, and let's see what local church there is. Like, we notice these things a lot because they matter that much, right?
Yeah.
And it can seem, for people who do front door stuff or greeting, that it's like, oh, you're just saying hi to people you see every week, but like these are the weeks more than others where like it really, really, really matters.
It doesn't feel as amazing as like you get to come in and you get to hear Josiah sing, and even my husband's on the worship team as a drummer, and so you get to see them, and that's like wow, and Steve's wow, and so you feel like it doesn't matter, but I just think it matters. Not that it matters more. Obviously, we need good worship and a good message. But I still think if I came to church and that first person turned me off, I would, because you usually remember the first person you met. I met Greg Frost. Mitch's dad was the first person I met when I came to church in 1998. And he obviously made a good impression, still great friends with him, but that's just so important. And it goes for the people that are normal to Sycamore that come every week to make sure they're being that for the guests we have.
100%.
For sure.
And not saying, I'm not going to move from my seat.
But you can even take that a step further. I mean, it goes to people who have Sycamore Creek stickers on their car and wear our shirts, and like you're representing the place that you're a part of, right? And impressions matter a lot, and all these different details, like you keep saying, behind the scenes, all the different things come together. And especially on a time like Easter Sunday, like we know it's going to be a lot of casual church people and Kriesters, as we call them, but it still is an incredible opportunity, because something even maybe small, it seems to some people, that we do well could be the reason why they're like, I'll come back on a random Sunday in March, or like in April, or like sometime this summer maybe I'll come back because somebody said hi to me, or somebody was genuinely nice, and okay, that meant a lot. I'll come back.
We have a guy that vacuums like during the week that no one would even know him. Like no one sees him. He's never on stage. He doesn't get paid. He just, out of the goodness of his heart, Peter comes in every other week and vacuums the grounds team that makes sure everything looks great. Like our flowers are amazing,
important.
and all those are people that you probably couldn't point out, but they're doing something so important. And so I just want to shout out and encourage them. I know it's not like singing on stage or bringing a message, but it's so important.
If I'm a visitor and I don't go to a church, right, I can go to any number of churches and probably see a great worship experience and hear a great message, and that's all great, and we care about that too. But it's those personal touches. It's I met somebody at the front door and they were really nice to me. Those are the things that would make somebody come back. Right? More so, I think.
And this is a world that you're in every week, obviously, but Easter, you feel a little bit more of, there's 3 services. Like you said, there's people with plans and things they got to get to. So it's just, you're feeling a little bit more of the weight and the stress leading up to it.
It just feels like it's your time to shine. Like every week I think we do a great job all around here. we really care about it and we really
Yeah.
try. But on this week, when we know we have Easter and that we're going to have all these visitors, and someone they may just be coming because somebody made them come. But this
Yeah.
one visit, they could find Jesus and
Yeah.
change their life.
Change their
and
life.
everyone from Peter who vacuums to
Yeah.
Josiah who sings, you all were a part of it. And
Yep.
so we just try to put on like our best.
Yep.
You know, when someone comes over and clean your house up.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
what we do for holidays.
Yeah, and it's hey, this year's better than a couple years ago because my first year on staff was COVID, and I remember you like people had to register for seats online.
We did
and
a
then
sign
you did
seating.
assigned seats.
Yes.
That's what it was with the
Yeah.
seating chart and who
Uh-huh.
was sitting where, but we figured it out and you pulled it
Yeah.
off. So
we went into a staff meeting with figuring out like, we can only have, I don't even, Jared might remember the number. I can't remember like the amount of people that could come.
it's
And I'm like,
crazy.
you know what? I think we can fit more. And if I do assigned seating, and
Yeah.
Steve's like, are you crazy? And I'm like, yes, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And you
we
did it.
did. We assigned seats and we fit almost
That's
like
awesome.
double the people that we
Yeah.
could. And then we filled it up.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember that. So Josiah,
Mhm.
let's switch it. So
Sure.
for you,
Yeah.
from your perspective, we've got not only Easter Sunday,
Mhm.
3 services.
Mhm.
Worship is a very big piece of those services as well.
Mhm.
But you've also got Good Friday worship night this week as well,
Yep.
which is a long set list.
Yep.
And is it pretty much the same worship team, or is it some different people?
Different people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Some crossover.
Yeah, and you've got a lot on your plate right now
Yeah.
leading up to this week because it's a big week. So
Yeah.
kind of tell us from your perspective what Easter's like. What are these holidays like for you?
Yeah, I mean, Easter and Christmas are both super special, and I know a lot of people in the production and in the worship side of things tend to freak out and weirdly kind of get resentful, but that hasn't been my experience at all. I really love Easter and I really love Christmas. It's just a lot of work. So we, as a staff, probably started, because Easter is early this year, we started talking about Easter late January, early February, and like having meetings
real
about it.
meetings and like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Probably
And
beginning
that
of this
means
year.
that like, I was thinking about songs and sets and stuff like that probably just after Easter, kind of shifting gears. So yeah, it's a long, staff-wise, it's a long lead up. We plan ahead and we try to make it as special as possible. And then now it's crunch time. We've got a worship team. We've got practice on Monday night. We've got practice on Wednesday night. We've got service on Friday, and then we've got service Sunday morning. So, the last few weeks have kind of been a blur. It's been a lot of working ahead, so that way this week I can really focus on the musical side of things and not so much the tech and everything around worship, but really focus on that. And then come Friday and Sunday, I can really just focus on leading, which is important. So yeah, it's madness right now. It's pretty crazy in my world, but we make it happen, and it's going to be great. And luckily I have awesome volunteers who are super dedicated and sacrificial in their time, both at home and here, to practice way ahead of time, so that way everything is efficient. We're not wasting time. We can kind of knock things out and be prepared, and then just focus on God when the services come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like from both sides of what you guys are bringing to the table for this week, I hear you both kind of saying like, we want to, put our best foot forward and do maybe some different elements and some different things, but we also want to very much just present who Sycamore Creek is,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
I mean, we've all probably been to church services at different churches that were awesome for Christmas or Easter, and there's such an experience, and it's all this great stuff, but you kind of leave going, I don't really know who that church was.
Right.
Like, they put on a great show, but
Yeah.
I don't really know what they would do week to week.
Like
Right.
they can't do this every week.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like we do a
Yeah.
good job of like, there is going to be special elements and
Yeah.
special openings or whatever it may be, but you still very much could walk away going, okay, I know what this church is all about. And I think that's important for people too. So yeah, I mean, I think that's awesome. And this will probably be a shorter conversation because we don't want to, it sounds like you guys have plenty going on leading up to this. But the other thing I wanted to talk about too, is with all these things that we have leading up to this weekend and putting on, these really well done, detailed services for people, how can we as a church staff, how do you guys make sure that you don't take for granted what Easter is all about, right? Because I know I've had those times of getting so caught up in the event that we're putting on or the thing we're doing, and then you get to the end of it and you're like, I didn't even get to experience it for myself, right? And sometimes that just naturally happens because something comes up and somebody won't give up their seat or a song goes wrong or whatever it is. But what have you guys found over the years of doing this, of finding ways to make sure you're still remembering what Easter's all about and remembering, the purpose of this whole weekend? I don't know if anybody wants to jump on that, but
yeah, I found it was easier when my kids were young because it was so important for me to make sure they understood it, that I made sure to go out of my way, and it was easier because they were always there, so I made sure to make sure they understood like what Easter meant, and it wasn't just about the Easter bunny or any of the things, but what it was really about. But it's hard when you're so busy on staff, and then for me personally, my husband's plays drums, so he's got the Monday and the Wednesday and all the things.
He's on both of them, yeah.
My son is now married, but he's a worship leader at another church, so just trying to have any sense of anything this week is hard with the time. And then on actual Easter, we're so busy, and especially with Tucker, being on church staff now too, it's like we're all tired, and when even getting together with family, like we just can't do our extended family on Easter. It's too hard. They don't live local, and so asking Tucker, like, what do you guys want to do? And he said, I would love to go home and take a nap and then do dinner. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. But we'll talk about what it means at meals. Like I make sure to slow down here at church. I'm not gonna lie, like I barely get to sit through any of it because it seems like somebody always needs something, or it's hot, or it's cold, or this is, and I'm just the guy that runs and does it all. So it's really hard. Even some Sundays are like that. Like I sit through service every Sunday, but every once in a while I'll just won't be able to. So I try really hard, especially worship night, because I really love worship. But usually on Easter, I have a hard time just sitting and listening because I'm just thinking of all the things that, is it too hot? Is it too cold? That baby's crying. Like, what can I do for this and that? But just I think it's more personally, I make sure to just reflect on what it is. And we always read, in the Bible, and we just do all the things to make sure we're not forgetting, what happened for us and why we're here doing this. And even today in my devotion, it was talking about being faithful in your day-to-day chores. And we don't think about that, but like being faithful because everything you do should, reflect Jesus. And this morning I'm like, gosh, I work at a church and this is Easter, and I have to come in and do the finances and all the boring stuff. But wow, what's coming this week and what we get to tell people about.
Yeah, absolutely. What about for you? What is it like to this process of making sure that you take time to remember for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's in a similar vein to Kristi. It's gotten a lot easier now that we have a kid, because at my previous church, I was working with my dad, and so we'd come home and just both be absolutely, exhausted, shattered, and we'd basically just like sit on the couch and when's food ready? And then, you rally for late lunch, early dinner, hang out with family, and then kind of take an early bedtime. But now that we have Luna, it forces us to, parenthood in general, but it forces us to think of ourselves kind of second. And so this year, I'm super excited. My brother has his kids out, and so we're going to do an Easter egg hunt in the afternoon and go to my parents' house and hang out and have food and just spend time together. And then even leading up to Easter, we've been telling Luna, it's Easter time, because we have little tchotchkes around the house, Easter baskets and stuff like that. And she's always like, what's that? And we're like, it's an Easter basket, because Easter's coming. You know what that is? And her answer is always, yep. Like, okay, well, let me tell you anyway. Jesus died and rose again. And that's because of that we get to have life. And she, she's 2. Like, she's not understanding it. But this is where you plant the seeds. And so it's been exciting for us to, forget about some of the jobness of it and sit back and get to kind of experience it through 2-year-old eyes, and then as years progress, through those eyes as well. So yeah, it's gotten easier. I've been in those years where it's, Easter's passed and you're just like a sigh of relief, and like that should never kind of be our attitude towards something as momentous as the resurrection. I get why it was in the time, but I'm happy that it's not the case anymore.
Yeah. My wife Lexi and I were talking about this last night actually, and she brought up this interesting point of like, she's grown up in the church and I have too, and it's really the only thing you've ever known. And it's just a reality. And I think people would relate to this too. Maybe we all will, of some years it just hits different and some years it kind of just passes because you've heard it before, as bad as that sounds. And we were just kind of having this moment last night of like, it's hitting this year for both of us differently. I think it just the series here at Sycamore and the series we're doing at the Well and just like engrossing ourselves in this story. But it's just a year for us of like, oh, like the story is getting, it's pulling on our hearts more. Like when you hear it so often, especially on church staff, this can be the case of just like every year we've got to prepare for Easter, you got to preach Easter, you got to sing about all these things. And it's like, all right. But there's just some times where a year comes about or the season comes about and you're just like moved, just like in a way you haven't been in a long time of like, man, there's just, this is the only story that matters as much as this one does. So,
I always wonder like how that hits for people who are lonely at Easter. I mean, we're all have busy lives, and sometimes I forget there are people out there that are lonely and don't even have family, and maybe don't have a whole lot to be thankful for. I mean, I know when Brock passed away in May, and I think Easter was April that year, and he wasn't doing very well. And I remember that Easter, for whatever reason, being in the hospital, Terry brought Bob Evans up, and we ate there. But I just remember thinking like, gosh, because of Easter, no matter what happens here at this hospital, I'm gonna always be with Brock, and I'm gonna see him again. And so that really hit me that year. Like, you knew what it was about or whatever, but you didn't really. I didn't really ever think about, because of that, like, no matter what happens with this guy right here, I'm never going to be separated from him. And that's really huge. Cool. Like, I hope that's encouraging for people who have just lost someone or going through the things to just remember that because of this event that happened, you're going to see them again.
Yeah, I mean, this is the hope of what we stand on in our whole belief system is this, right? Yeah. That Jesus died for us as if he was us on the cross, and then he rose again to defeat death forever. So, that's the hope of our lives. And no matter where we are, busy and overworked or lonely and not sure, what life holds for you right now, the hope remains the same no matter where we are. And that's something that we can celebrate and remember this time of year more than anything, right?
Yeah. We just have to remember to do it and not get so busy and all the things. And a lot of times it's good things. Like, it's changed for me with my extended family, like my nieces and nephews getting older. But at the time, you go 1,000 places, and then the day's over, and you're like, I haven't even thought about anything except for finding Easter eggs and eating and.
100%. Yeah, it's there's a sense for Christmas and Easter, I think, for different reasons, obviously, but there's a sense of awe and surprise that God did for us, sending his son for Christmas and then defeating death on Easter. That is so easy to forget and to pass by because we've grown up in it, we've heard it 1,000 times. But like that's the word as well. Like, how many times have you read a Bible passage? You're preaching on Lazarus today, and you're like, I've never seen this before. It's been right here the whole time, but I've never seen it. I think God just renews that sense every time, and it's important to allow him to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Some new detail or something you didn't see in the story before, just some new way it's playing out, whether it be Bob Evans in a hospital and you're just seeing the story you've heard forever, but in a different light. And that's sometimes all it takes for you to just be kind of like undone, and you're just like, I can't believe that this is what we get to talk about and what we get to do. So
because the alternative is just, if he hadn't died like us and rose from the dead, like the alternative is a whole lot more of a sad world.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we're already a messed up world.
Right.
So
yeah, without that.
Yeah. But how cool is that we as longtime believers get to experience something new. Yeah. And also on Sunday, there's going to be a bunch of people who, for the very first time, are going to be like, wait a second, hold up. Yeah. Eternal life, and I don't have to be punished for my sins and wrongdoings. Like, that's amazing. We get to experience it at the same time next to each other. And so I think we're going to be praising God hard on Sunday for salvations and for new people joining God, joining Jesus. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, hey, thank you guys for making some time for this little conversation on a busy week, and thank you all for tuning in, listening, watching to this. We would love to see you here this weekend. We've got a Good Friday worship night at 7 p.m. and we've got 3 services on Sunday, 8:30, 9:45, and 11. Did I get that right? Yep. Nice. And so we would love to have you join us just as we reflect on what Jesus did, because this is a really, really celebratory time of year to just come together as the church and reflect on what our God did for us. So
come early to both.
Yes,
Good
that
Friday
is a good point.
And Easter.
because it will be
It's gonna
tight.
packed, yeah.
Yeah. And give up your seat if you have to.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
please,
scooch
please,
together. Your
move.
purse doesn't need its own seat.
Yeah. But that is it. We will see you next week on the In All Things podcast. As always, let us know what you want to hear on this show. We'd love to bring topics and questions and ideas that come from you. And we will see you next time on the In All Things podcast. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamore.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.